Hey, my name's Devon Larratt. I'm the current World Arm Wrestling League champion, right and left. I'm going to do an interview with Great North Wrestling. So check it out.
How did you become interested in arm wrestling?
Well, I think like most people, I had my introduction to arm wrestling pretty early. I think that the first person I arm wrestled with was my grandmother. And she was everybody in the family said she was like some champion, right? So she'd come over and she'd make me do chores, and my reward for doing my chores was I got to arm wrestle her. And I remember I loved it back then. I loved the feeling of it. And all through school, I used to arm wrestle just on tables, whatever. Any chance I really had, I'd do it. And then I met my first like real arm wrestler when I went out and worked oil field. I was like 18 years old, and I was like, oh my god, this is a sport. Like, I had no idea that this was actually something that people did. And at that point in time, there was no internet. It was kind of underground, people meeting in bars. You know, you got a flyer, meet here 3 weeks later, and ever since then I was totally hooked.
And when was your first actual competition?
Right, so my first competition, I would have been 18, and it would have been in northern BC. It was, I think, 1994, the winter, I think probably January or February of 94. And it had amateur and pro, and I think I entered the 220 or 209 amateur class, and I got third. So yeah, it was quite a wake-up call for me.
Did you have much training going into that from professional arm wrestlers?
No, like I said, I'd arm wrestled, and I loved arm wrestling since I was a kid. So I had like probably a good 13 years of doing it wrong under my belt, which is still worth a lot, right? But I had just met like a real arm wrestler like 2 weeks prior, Dion Langell, up in Red Deer, and it just so happened there was a tournament coming up, and he's like, you want to come? And I was like, absolutely. So my first tournament, I kind of just jumped right in.
And how did you start improving after that? That was obviously a good showing for your first tournament.
I started, like, I was really into getting stronger, like, my whole life. Like, all I really ever cared about was getting stronger and more powerful, and like that's been a constant in my life. But I think what happened is, for one, at the beginning you just have a lot to learn. Like, it's very easy to make gains at the beginning, just in pure just strength, which can be really general, or just technique, which again is really general at the beginning. Like, you can take some big strides, but really just kind of, when I lost, I'd just do the opposite. So if my arm went this way, then I'd get really strong and go like this. If my hand went back like this, well, then I'd just do this like crazy. Whatever happened, I'd do the opposite until my game got real tight.
And how much training do you think a new arm wrestler should have before they start entering competitions? Because obviously it could be dangerous, breaking an arm or something.
Yeah. It really depends. I think you can be your own best gauge for that. You feel like you're healthy and you feel like you're strong, well, jump right in there. I would encourage anybody who's thinking of pursuing arm wrestling to find local clubs, and they're everywhere. And most of them are very welcoming, because arm wrestlers use each other as their training equipment. So we are always looking for more training equipment. And if you go to a club, they're going to know if you're ready. Like, a good arm wrestler, a guy who's been arm wrestling 10, 15 years, they're going to be able to just touch your hand, and they're going to know if you arm wrestle dangerously or if you're strong enough. So they'll let you know. But, at some point you're going to have to take that jump. And some people never do. some people come to the clubs and they're club arm wrestlers, and that's great. And I encourage that. Like, club arm wrestling, it's a great thing. It's a fun thing to do, but yeah, competitive's a whole nother level.
Is there many people actually making a living at it, or is it more of a hobby to most people that are in it?
Man, you can get so rich being an arm wrestler. It's crazy. People don't know. It's like the doctor and lawyer of the sports world. Like, you think, no, we don't make a lot of money. There's a few of us who are getting by. But like, the good thing is it's changing now more than ever. I mean, I've been arm wrestling more than 20 years, and this last year is the first year that I've ever been sponsored. You know, thank you, Win Mobile. You know, Monster Energy. You know, it's coming. That's all thanks to the exposure that we're getting through World Arm Wrestling League, ESPN. You know, we're taking steps. I have been able to make a living off arm wrestling for the last couple of years. You know, that's how much there is. It's only a few of us right now. Hopefully everything keeps going and it gets bigger. But listen, you can always get free drinks at the bar if you're a good arm wrestler.
And what are the major championships that you've won so far in your career?
Well, I guess the things that, the steps that I took in my career is, first I went after, I wanted to be the best in Canada. And I became the best in Canada around 2000, 2001. There's a lot of great arm wrestlers in Canada, but I think that I was starting to crack those guys around 2000, 2001. And then after that, I wanted to be the best in the world. And back then, there was a lot of federations and a lot of rules, a lot of federations and titles that you could have. But the thing that I was really after was the open world ranking, which was basically a compilation of results which kind of let guys know where they fit, regardless of where they were arm wrestling. So in 2008, I became the open weight world #1 ranked arm wrestler in the right hand. Managed to hold on to that for about 5 years, and my right arm just it slowly became harder and harder for me to hold on to that, just because of buildup of bone. And I lost it around 2013 when I had a surgery to have my arm fixed. In the left, I got that same title right around that time. So, and then and I held that until about 2014 or 15 when I started to compete at the 225-pound weight. And basically, since I dropped to the 225, I've held the World Arm Wrestling League world title in either the right or the left, or both. Actually, I held it in the left, and then now I've got it in the right and the left since then. So World Arm Wrestling League world title. Also really proud of my Arm Wars belt as well. That was a big deal for me. One-on-one arm wrestling was a big phase in the arm wrestling game. So, anyways.
Have you ever actually broken anyone's arm in an arm wrestling match?
Yeah, unfortunately, it has never been in a match. Well, it's never been in a high-level competition that has happened. But yes, I have. And when it happens, I normally I feel like energy coursing through my body, and I there can only be one, right? That's what I feel. Yeah, that happens sometimes. It's unfortunate, but when you think about all the bad things that can happen in any sport, like we don't have concussions, we don't have spine, you can still walk just fine. I've been arm wrestling my brains out for my whole life, and the worst thing that can happen to you really is you trash your elbows or your shoulder. Arm break isn't the end of the world. A lot of the champs, a lot of the best guys in the world have broken their arms and come back from it.
What's the worst injury you've seen in arm wrestling?
Worst injury. Well, the arm break is bad. Yeah. You know, I would actually argue that, you know, some of the tissue rips and, when you blow a ligament, I actually think that's actually, it's not as visually, like when a guy breaks his arm wrestling, it's, visually just terrible, right? It's like, it's terrible. And that happens. But it's the ones like where you tear like a ligament in your elbow, or, you blow your bicep off. That happens too. And I think that those are actually worse because they actually take longer to heal from, and they can be more long-term debilitating.
Did you ever see the incident on World's Strongest Man? Where,
I've seen everything.
Where Magnus Samuelsson
if
broke
it's out there
Jim.
and it's on arm wrestling, I promise you I've seen it. Yeah.
What did you think of that?
That's a really rare one.
Yeah.
Because typically the arm breaks like right here. Right close to the elbow, but it's the upper arm, it's the humerus, and generally it's a spiral fracture. It's very rare that it's up here, like happened to Mega Man. So yeah, he's a bit of he's an anomaly to begin with, so.
And is it common for arm wrestlers to ever get in fights after arm wrestling? Because it can get
it's rare,
yeah.
Very rare. I think we need more of it. I think we do. I think we got to go there. People remember X-Arm. You ever see X-Arm?
No.
Oh, well, look up X-Arm. Most arm wrestlers hate X-Arm. I actually thought it was kind of cool, but.
Did you ever see the movie Over the Top?
Yeah, if you go down to my basement right now, you can watch it. It's playing right now. Yeah, it's on repeat. Yeah, it doesn't stop playing in my house.
Did you, some people say that it's bad for arm wrestling the way they portrayed it in that movie. Did you think they were kind of making a mockery of it, or was it good for arm wrestling?
Oh, you got a lot of schools of thought on that. Arm wrestling as a sport. A lot of arm wrestlers think that we have to lift arm wrestling and make it like a sport, like, we have to leave this blue collar, bar scene kind of feel. And I don't know that that's entirely true. The truth is yes, arm wrestling is a sport and guys train like crazy for it, and there's guys who don't drink and don't, who live their lives really responsibly and just view it as an athletic event. But I feel like you do have this culture where you can go to the bar and you can arm wrestle like a drunken idiot. You can do that. A lot of people do, and I think that's cool. So I think that's always going to be there, but I think that we're in the process of, going to higher levels as well at the same time.
And there's a couple pro wrestlers in that movie, Terry Funk, but also Scott Norton,
right,
who ended up being a multiple-time U.S. arm wrestling champion.
Yes.
Do you have any thoughts on him, if you know who he is?
Yeah. He was before my time, but all the old arm wrestlers that I've talked to said his strength was just unbelievable, like legendary strength. Like a lot of the old guys that I've talked to, a lot of them describe him as the strongest guy they've ever met. And when an arm wrestler, when any athlete says that about a guy, that's a pretty serious compliment, right? So yeah, he was definitely the real deal.
And you might be a bit too young for this, but there used to be a wrestler called Superstar Billy Graham, who is a WWE Hall of Famer, and his gimmick was he would arm wrestle people from the crowd.
That's
and
great.
I was just wondering if you ever heard of him.
I'm going to look him up afterwards, though. For
he
sure.
would take legitimate challenges, but he apparently knew the tricks.
Yeah, very good.
And there's also a MMA fighter called Gary Goodrich from Canada.
Jeez, yeah.
Do you know him?
Of course, I know Gary Goodrich. Gary Goodrich is like a legendary arm wrestler. He was so I've held the open world title in terms of ranking. There's a lot of Canadians who have won world championships. Gary is the only other Canadian who's had the open super heavyweight world ranking. So yeah, he was the man back late 90s. His strength was off the charts. I didn't see it, okay, but so on a preacher curl, rumor has it he was doing 225. Now in arm wrestling we don't really do a lot of full range stuff. We kind of keep really tight. So he was doing like hammer locks. So that's that's breaking 90. So that's where the real hard stuff is. But he was breaking 90, 225 for 6 reps, which is ungodly. That's ridiculous. But yeah, he was great.
And he crossed over to MMA and did pretty well. Do you think it's kind of a natural transition to cross from arm wrestling to MMA, or was he kind of unique?
There's a lot of guys in arm wrestling who have, some MMA or martial arts roots in them, and arm wrestling is, I'm gonna say it's a fight-based sport. Like some people think it's a strength-based sport. I'm going to tell you, it's a combat-based, okay? So it's really similar. Like, arm wrestlers are really master hand fighters. Like, my hand will kick the shit out of your hand. That's what an arm wrestler is. And the hand's a big part of the fight game, right? So arm wrestlers, if they transition, they've got great hands, and, it's functional. It's pretty functional strength, so I think there's a lot of pretty tough arm wrestlers out there, but... like anything, you got to train for whatever it is that you're trying to be good at.
What are some of the common mistakes that a beginner arm wrestler would make in a bar compared to like a seasoned veteran like you?
Well, guys are going to rush things. And what I mean by rushing things is they're thinking about pinning, right? They're thinking about putting that arm down. But there's a lot of things you got to do. You got to pull a guy out. You got to find their fingers. Extension is big in the arm wrestling game. People think you got to go this way, but you really got to go this way or like this way. You got to bring everything tight to you. So that's a big thing. In terms of danger, arm wrestlers are going to always kind of keep good position. Guys in the bar might start to look away from their arm and see how my elbow's coming away from my body and see how my arm's starting to open up. You ever see a guy arm wrestling like this? If they're going like this, get ready. It's gonna go.
And obviously it requires a lot of strength training. What's some of the strength training you do to prepare yourself for arm wrestling?
Most of the real critical strengths for arm wrestling is in the wrist, okay? Like in terms of priority, in terms of joints, this is super important, super important. Everything really that's going on here, you can say this, this, those 3 movements, very important. This angle here, just your ability to keep this closed, that's super important. So wrist joint, elbow stability, shoulder, you got to be able to keep your shoulder, inside your body, you got to be able to drag a bit. But after that, in terms of the rest, everything goes way down. So, really heavy wrist curls, man.
Yeah.
Just do heavy fucking wrist curls, and you're gonna be really
dumbbell or barbell?
Thick. You want to go large diameter, because you really want wrist tie-in with anything that you do, and nothing is going to tie your wrist into whatever you're doing more than that diameter. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are some of your strongest lifts in the gym, like bench press, squat, and
Oh
deadlift?
my God, I'm just going to be so embarrassed here. Like, I'm very unimpressed. I used to, I'm 41 years old, and I'll tell you, I got a lot of miles. So these days, I'm really trying to just maintain and hang on and stay healthy and all that kind of stuff. When I was younger, like 25, I was, I have trained my whole body for most of my life. It's just these last few years that I've really gotten specialized, and that has a lot to do with me kind of transitioning kind of out of the military. Now I don't really have to be able to run around and do all that stuff so much anymore, so I'm getting really dialed in on arm wrestling. But the most I've ever benched in my whole life is 365 pounds, And now, geez, if I did 200, I'd probably be pretty happy. Deadlift, I think I was working around, 450. Squat, oh my God. I think I did 3 plates, I was having a great day. But that was when I was training a lot. Those numbers are not reflective of what I can do now. But kind of when I was at my physical, all-around peak, that's probably close to what I was doing. Some more impressive lifts would have been in the, really for arm wrestling. Like I was doing heavy locked curls, where I'd break 90. And I got up to about 180 pounds, which is, it's not the most that an arm wrestler probably does, but it's pretty good.
Is there weight classes? Obviously there is, but is it like UFC where there's tons of weight classes, or is it?
It depends on the federation. There are a lot of opportunities for people to find the perfect weight category if they're willing to go into any association. Typically, you can find something within 5 kilos. But the big league now, World Arm Wrestling League, they're doing fewer categories. Okay, 165, 195, 225, and open. That's only 4. But if you want to talk grassroots, local events, yes, geez, there's a weight category for you. Normally they go every 5 to 10 kilos.
And obviously for the local events, there's no drug testing, but for the bigger events where there's money on the line, do they do drug testing? Because some of these guys look pretty massive.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting time right now. So drug testing in arm wrestling, World Arm Wrestling Federation is tested. So they have 20 cards that they'll randomly test the top 3 placers. And they've done a really good job, and they've really cleaned up that side of the sport. That's been going on now, I think, since 2007 or so. I'm probably off by 2 years or so on either end. But so that's a yes. And World Arm Wrestling League, our guys do have a contract that says we're tested. However, I've not been tested yet, and I don't think anybody else has. But I know that it is their intention to begin testing as more and more major sponsors come in. It's the same thing with UFC. I think we're trying to follow that path. At the beginning, it was Wild Wild West, right? And once the fan base got high enough, once the money was there, once it became mainstream enough that people started to care, then testing became demanded, right? The commissions demanded that they were tested. So I think that we're probably really close on the professional side.
And you mentioned the growing fan base. What kind of crowds and what kind of TV exposure do you guys get on the larger scale events?
Yeah, so the last 3 years, since 2014, 15, and this year, our last 3 finals have gotten coverage from ESPN. And that's looked like each weight category has their own individual show. And they've done an overall, best of. And they've had women's now as well, which is awesome. We've got, so that's 6 shows on ESPN, and they've done they've shot them again and again. They've done, repeats. So we've had some good airtime. It's been mostly in the summer for the last 3 years. And hopefully TSN picks us up and we can watch it here in Canada, Europe's picked it up. Australia has picked it up. So, and I'm not sure. I think that there's probably a few other countries that are picking up as well. We got a really, really brilliant business team kind of running the show right now with Steve Kaplan and Dan Lonnie and all the guys at World Arm Wrestling League. And I know they're pushing hard to get us on TV everywhere. So.
And you brought up the women. Who, in your opinion, is the best woman arm wrestler in the world right now?
Well, there's weight classes, right?
Well, overall.
Overall?
Yeah.
Well, the one that I would have said just got beat a couple days ago. There was this crazy, crazy girl from from Lithuania, I think. I think she's from Lithuania. Egla Vaituika. She was like undefeated for like 7 or 8 years. But honestly, for me, I feel like the best women in the world, arm wrestling. Well, the best arm wrestlers that are women, I feel like they're Swedish. I know that they don't always win, but I feel like the culture in Sweden for the women is just super, super strong. They have really dominant champions, and just there's so many of them, and they're all very good. Like the girl who won the 148s this year, Swedish girl, Fia Reisek. It's going to be hard to beat her. And it's not just her. They have a lot of them, and like the women in that country, they're as good as the men, which is very rare for, I think, anybody to be able to say about a sport like this. You know, where the women kind of equal in talent to the men, and it's very high. It's very high in that country.
You guys, some of you are pretty good celebrities by now, and a lot of sports have groupies. I know you're married and everything, but is there any arm wrestling groupies?
No, I don't know anything about that. Oh my God. You're trying to kill me here. Okay, I'll get my head. No, it's a great scene. Arm wrestling is a great scene. Like, the fans are starting to come alive out there. It's good.
And this is a question for one of my friends that follows arm wrestling, so if I don't get the name right, but he wanted me to ask if you think Alexei Voivoda could ever return to his previous form before leaving for Olympic bobsledding.
Oh man, here's the thing, Alexei Voivoda, like, he should have never came back. You know, it's unfortunate. I don't want to say that because I wish he had stayed, to tell you the truth. Alexei Voivoda, he was a dominant guy. Okay, came up quick. Won a big championship, but he won one championship, and he was hailed as the greatest thing ever. You know, he disappeared. You know, winning one championship, and even the way he won it. You know, like whenever anybody who follows combat sports, there's so many questions. You know, like and people argue everything, right? And I'm in the look. I got a lot of respect for Alexei Voivoda. His strength is ridiculous, and his athletics, like, I mean, yeah, went on to win gold medals, but when he was on top, I think, yep, he was, I'm of the mindset that he clearly was number one in the world during that time period. I believe that. Not everybody does. The problem is that it's a lot of work. It's a lot of dedication to be the number one guy in the world. It's a lot of work, and you got to be like hungry like crazy. Like, it's got to be worth a lot to you. And I feel like to some degree, and I don't know Alexei personally. I don't know him, but I watch him, and I worry that a part of his soul became satisfied. You know, he's done a lot. He's accomplished a lot of things. And I don't know that he loves arm wrestling enough to die for it, you know? Like, and that's what it'll take, you know? Is that how much he loves it? Like, is he willing to break his body all over again to get to the top? Because he'll have to. Right now, so he came back a couple months ago and had a tremendous fight with a great American arm wrestler, Tim Bresnan. You got to see that video. It's on YouTube. Tim Bresnan versus Alexei Voivoda. Great match. Total war. Alexei was the favorite going in. Tim Bresnan cleaned him up, beat him. Everybody in North America was like, yeah! Like, Tim's our new hero. But I think it was a good wake-up call for Alexei. You know, I think he trained hard. But for him to get back on top now, it's a different world. I mean, what the sport was 10 years ago, it's not the same. It is not even close. Like, what was number one then, it's a whole nother level now.
How would you have done against him in his prime, do you think?
Well, I think that me in my prime versus him in his prime, you know, feel like I want to beat him. What am I supposed to say? I'd kill that guy, I'd crush him, you know? Here's the thing. I think, like, if you were to measure straight up, like, how we matched up, I think he was probably a little bit stronger than I was. I think I was probably a bit better arm wrestler than he was. I think I had more options. I think that I would probably outlast him. There was a time when I really wanted that match. I remember, you know, I won in 2010, I think, against Michael Todd, and that was a period when I was really kind of cleaning up, and there was really nobody really active that was really, you know, that I wanted to take. And I remember he's like a legend that I wanted to kill. Like, I wanted to take him out. And now I don't think it'd be a problem. But I think if I was offered that match today, I think I'd just destroy him. So.
And another legendary arm wrestler, Cleve Dean, he was also the world's strongest man in the 70s. Did you ever meet him?
I didn't. I did not meet Cleve, but yeah, that's a giant. That's a giant in our sport, legendary. There's so many great stories about Cleve Dean, from him like being able to pick up 200-pound pigs just like this, you know, and walk around. He was a great big dude, humongous human being. You know, you hear stories of him going on a diving board and doing like multiple flips and stuff. You know, his hands were, you know, probably like 3 times the size of mine. Just a gigantic athlete, gigantic man. Yeah, but no, he passed away a couple years ago. So.
And speaking of gigantic athletes, you had a famous match against Mountain from Game of Thrones.
What a cool guy.
Yeah, how did that come about?
Wally, I forget Wally's last name right now, but he has his annual strongman event. So he's from Iceland, Wally is. He owns a construction company, and he's able to put on this big event, pull in strength athletes, and because of his ties back to Iceland, he normally gets some legendary strongman to come. So this year he had Hafthor there, and his booth was just a few meters away, so we're hanging out pretty close all day long. You know, he's just signing girls' boobs, and, you know, he's doing the group, and he's having a good time, and so we talked a bit. I told him when his knees blew out, he's going to have to come to arm wrestling.
So was that a legitimate match where he was actually trying to win?
There was we were on the table. Like, I mean, you saw probably a short video. Mostly it was just instructional. But there came a point where he wanted to actually see how much force was actually going on. So, you know, I safely kind of showed him how much, you know. But Hafthor is a great big dude. And what I've found in my life with athletes is the more specialized they become, the worse they are at everything else. So Hafthor is, even with something as general as strongman, like when you think about strongman, it's quite general, right? They're doing all sorts of like crazy heavy stuff, but arm wrestling's different. It's a different kind of strength, it's a different kind of combative, and there's not always a lot of crossover. Yeah. I'm sure if he dedicated himself, he'd be great, but like anybody, he'd be starting from the beginning. The strongest people in the world, no kidding, models. Models. Really? I'm telling you, there's something about models. Yeah, and porn stars. Strongest people in the world. Yeah, for real.
You've arm wrestled a lot of porn stars.
I haven't, but I have not. But okay, so we go to like fitness conventions.
Yeah. And
we set up tables, bring people in the booth, you know, and I've arm wrestled, you know. I'm gonna say I've probably arm wrestled tens of thousands of people in my life, and well, yeah, that's probably accurate. And I've gotten to be, well, I've found that whenever I arm wrestle people who have no clue about arm wrestling, like first timers, if I always ask people, what do you do? What sports do you do? You know, tell me about, you know, your physical history a little bit. And as soon as somebody says they're a model, every single time they're like steel. They're like super tight, super healthy, like can apply pressures all the directions. There's something about their health or something. I don't know. So anyways, I told this story to a guy down in LA who's a fighter. Anyway, so he told me he had the same experience. He said, but there was one group that was stronger, and he's got the same thing. He said that he's fought hundreds of thousands of more. He's fought many people for a long time. Eric Paulson.
Okay.
You know Eric Paulson?
Of course I know who he is.
Yeah. So
he was one of Brock Lesnar's trainers too.
Right. Yeah. Eric Paulson. He's a brilliant fighter, right?
Yeah.
Right. So I went and did a 2-week seminar with Eric back like in 2005 or so. I was really into fighting back then.
Okay.
And I told him the story, and he said, "You don't have access to this group because you don't live close to Hollywood, but there's one group that's stronger than the models, and it's the porn stars." So I just think that's funny, so I share it.
Is there any reason you didn't get into MMA any further around that time?
Yeah. There was 2 big reasons. Well, 3. So I really always had a big crush on arm wrestling. I just, something about it, I just really loved it. Now I love fighting too. But to me, there was a bit of a difference, okay? So I viewed arm wrestling, and I still view arm wrestling as very much a very social thing. A very friendly thing, and it's a great sport. Like, I can come in here and I can fucking pound with my buddies a few times a week, and at the end of it, we're all good. There's no problems, there's no issues. And I fought since I was a kid. I started judo when I was like grade 3, and I did it my whole life. And I transitioned from one martial art to the other. Like I did Thai. I did a lot of mixed stuff. Never really took it to the next level where I was competing, but I had my feet in it heavily. But I also was in the military, and I felt that that was like the ultimate fight game, like fighting with guns. I just felt that there was, like, if you want to get really real about it, like if you want to be like really like legit, straight up, like you want to fight.
There's no rules there.
Right. Okay. So that to me was the ultimate UFC, and that's kind of what I dedicated most of my life towards, was being in the military. So I felt that I had my real fight game, and then I had my sport fight game, and my sport was my arm wrestling. I considered heavily, switching. The last reason was I saw old fighters, and I saw a lot of them. I just knew that if I really wanted to be serious, like if I wanted to go after like a world title or be like really good and dedicate myself heavily to it, I knew I was going to get more brain damage than I already have. And, I'd rather just get trashed elbows.
Did you find it hard keeping up your training when you were in the military? Because I think I read you were in Afghanistan for a tour.
Yeah, I did many tours. And military is a great place to take care of your physical fitness. There are obstacles, for sure there are. But at all the jobs, like if you have a job, yes, that's going to mess with your routine as a pro athlete, right? Like not having a job is better, but if you got a job, the military feeds you. It's an extremely physical lifestyle. And there's times when you're basically in like a training camp, so physically I think it was probably really good for me. You do a tour of Afghanistan, anybody who's done a tour, most guys put on, so say you're like a 220-pound dude and you're like kind of regular and like okay shape, you normally come back like 10 pounds heavier and ripped, just because, you get your food taken care of, somebody's doing your laundry, your only job is going out on patrol or whatever it is job you're doing over there and working out. That's it. So I think it probably helped me in my life.
What trade were you in?
Well, I started out in the infantry, and then in 2001 I moved to the Special Forces, and I spent the rest of my career there. And I just retired yesterday.
And you brought up that you like the Over the Top movie. Could you see another arm wrestling movie coming out in the future?
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. What I really liked, arm wrestling movie. Yeah, we got to do another one. And there's so many ways we could approach it. It's such a great time in our culture, to do one. I was a really big fan of Game of Arms. Game of Arms was, I don't know if you're familiar with Game of Arms.
No, I haven't heard.
Game of Arms was a reality series that, in my opinion, really paved the way for this modern era of arm wrestling. I think there was a lot of sparks that lit the fire of what's going on right now, but in my opinion, Game of Arms was a massive spark for WAL. And WAL is really what's going on right now, especially in North America.
Yeah, you want to tell us a bit about that? You have the WAL.
Yeah, World Arm Wrestling League. That's where it's at, man. Get yourself one of these, or 2 or 3 or 4, World Arm Wrestling League. Big money, great tournaments, coverage. Anybody can join up, qualify, get your ranking up high enough, go to the finals, get on TV, win some cash. Women, men, there's a place for you. It's a really great time in our sport because we have these guys. They're opening up doors with sponsors. Very optimistic that this is the key to professional arm wrestling.
And we're in your garage. This is your training center.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us a bit about your club here and what these shirts are and some of these trophies behind you?
Yeah. So Ottawa High Hookers, you can see up there. That's all the T-shirts that we've had over the years. We get together about twice a week, typically. We've got a big membership. Like, there's a lot of people who have come in here and arm wrestled. But we have like a real solid nucleus of guys who are showing up and, and taking the steps forward. We got kids. That's probably our real future. It's free. So, we take care of each other. The main thing is when you get in here, the purpose is to make each other stronger and better arm wrestlers. So there's a lot of talking. Sometimes it turns into a bit of a social club, which is cool. But it's really what a lot of my life revolves around, is just hanging out Monday and Friday, getting a great workout in, and catching up with the team. We travel together. We coach each other. It's really like there is no real structure. It's like it's very loosely organized. We all have kind of the same goal, and we just get stronger. That's it. That's what we do here at the High Hookers. Just get stronger.
So would you just in a typical practice have numerous matches against different opponents, or is there...
It looks different depending on who you are and what you want. But most people come in here, warm up. Warming up means kind of not pinning each other, just kind of, gripping up, pressuring up, moving your body, different pressures. Then once you feel like you're good and ready, there's a lot of rivalries even just within the club. A lot of guys, want to test each other out. Some guys just want to get that pressure higher, right? So same way you go to the gym, say you're working bench, you'll kind of do your warm up, and then you'll hit like a few really good working sets. Same thing in arm wrestling. Once we do our warm up, we'll get in some really good grinders. The thing is, and it's the same thing, how you have like, you got bench, you got incline fly, you got dips, you might even hit shoulders all on the same day, whatever. Same thing in arm wrestling. You got tons of different moves you can, really get a good workout in, and they're going to use different muscle groups. So most guys kind of hit everything. Some guys, work straps one day, work outside techniques, and the next day work in. Some guys have easier kind of holding days, and then Fridays they blow it all out and they're wrecked for the weekend.
For the people that don't know about the straps, what are the straps for? So
straps, straps is what arm wrestling is really all about. Straps is high-level arm wrestling. There is a big advantage in this whole concept of who's holding on to who. Okay, so if I can somehow get you to hold on to me, there's a lot of techniques that I can execute that put you at a disadvantage. And most arm wrestlers kind of wrap their heads around this. And a lot of who's holding on to who can actually be determined just in the setup, the way the hands get kind of placed. So, and there's imperfections in that. And as soon as you kind of start to realize that, a lot of people start to then realize that the strap is a facilitator of kind of a more fair system of arm wrestling. It allows both guys to execute any technique that they want without their hands coming apart. So all it is it's a system. It's very simple. You just wrap the two of you together, and then you go at it. You're tied up, no escape.
So you prefer it with the wraps, I take it?
I do. I think that it's better arm wrestling. I really believe that. You get a lot of people. It's kind of a bit of a hot topic in arm wrestling, but I'll definitely fight hard and I'll enter in any debate when people really want to get seriously involved about a strap conversation. The problem is the real problem in arm wrestling is nobody wants to hold on to each other. There's two big concepts in arm wrestling when you talk about arm wrestling technique. There's inside arm wrestling and outside arm wrestling. Inside arm wrestling, I'm trying to get so far around you that you can never really escape, and I'm going to pin your arm and my body's going to be more committed than yours is. That's kind of what you're after. And outside arm wrestling is I'm trying to peel your fingers back and kind of make you not able to use any of your strength. And there's blends obviously between those two, pillars. But both of them do really well with the aid of a strap. If somehow I can bypass my fingers, if somehow I can get connected without having to reach for you, then there's this whole technical gap that's kind of cleared off. It's difficult to explain, but there's an imperfection in the whole grip up process. It takes a while to establish a grip in arm wrestling. And when people come to the table and they're trying to negotiate a grip, this can take a long time, and nobody wants that. It's not good for the sport. It takes too long. Endurance becomes too much of a factor, which nobody really wants. And for audience and live spectators, it's the most boring thing that you can imagine. So we've moved more to this set grip style of arm wrestling. But the problem is when you set somebody's grip and don't let them pressure up, instantly somebody is having a disadvantage. Okay? And that disadvantage is greatly, greatly minimized through the use of a strap. If the referee sets the person where they're holding on to the other one, there's basically no way that you can properly execute an outside move if you're holding on to the other person. But you can always do it if you're tied to them.
So it's a much more technical sport than most people think of.
Well, it's like anything. It doesn't matter what it is. The closer you look at something, the more you find detail, right? And arm wrestling is a miniature martial art. It's the greatest handshake ever.
And there seems to be a lot of psychological aspects to it too. You see the
Yeah.
the intimidation that some people try and display. Is that a big part of it?
It is. Confidence is a very powerful thing. It's very powerful. It can go a long way. Arm wrestling is a sport that exposes your whole frame to failure. That's the kind of level of commitment that you need when you're at the highest level of competition. Like when you're in the championships and there's, $20,000 on the table, you need to be instantly exposing your frame to catastrophic failure, right? Like that's the mentality you have to win. So that's confidence, and the more you can portray that and admit that, the more you can make the guy second guess. And second guessing in a sport where commitment is key, that leads to failure.
And where can people follow you for people that want to get in contact with you or fans of yours that want to...
Probably the best place right now is Facebook, but I just got a brand new phone, so I'm gonna try Instagram, who knows, but Facebook is easy right now for me. Devon Larratt, look me up on Facebook. I post all the practice times for when we're ripping here in the garage. Anybody here in Ottawa or the surrounding district, come out. We're always looking for new talent. We'll take care of you. In here, we do our very best to, bring up a team. We want the Ottawa High Hookers to be the most legendary team that arm wrestling's ever seen. So.
And we have a lot of American fans that watch this channel. So, is there anything you want to say to your fans in the States?
Well, they're just not very strong as a demographic. That's the problem. Like, I think USA, you kind of got to step up your game. Like, I'm so strong right now, there's no chance that there's an American who can beat me. That's the thing that I worry about. So, there's such a good, big country. There's such a great country. It's just a bit disappointing that they're so weak.
And for my final question, I'll just ask, who's your favorite arm wrestler of all time?
Favorite arm wrestler of all time? There's so many. I hate to, just say one. Why don't we make this really conservative, and I'll say Jody Larratt.
Very good. Well, thanks for speaking with us, and good luck in the future.
Hey, thanks so much, Devin.